Hey, welcome everyone. We're going to talk about visualization tonight. As you can see, my name is Lisa Hoffart. I'm a registered psychologist and a mental performance consultant. I work with the Sport Medicine and Science Council of Saskatchewan. I work with athletes across the province, different sports, different abilities, different ages, really to help them to enhance their mental skills so that they can use those to enhance their performance and just feel like they're enhancing their overall functioning day to day. And so visualization is one of those topics that a lot of athletes are interested in, but that a lot of athletes also tell me that they struggle with sometimes. And I know visualization can be such an important one for golf. And so wanted to start off this series of sessions that we're doing with visualization. It gives you obviously longer to practice it, to start incorporating it before the season, but we'll also look at how we can add in other skills to visualization as we go through our future sessions. So like I said, at any point, please feel free to ask me a question, put it in the chat directly to me. You can put it directly to Steve as well. I've made him a co-host. You're welcome to unmute yourself and ask questions that way. We're going to do a few different activities. I'll lead you through some visualization. Steve's taking over at halftime to do kind of a little golf rules quiz, and then we'll get going. Steve, before I jump into it, is there anything you want to say off the top, or are we good?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I just want to thank everyone for taking their time out this evening, and we're really excited for the five session up, and yeah, they're going to be some very informative information, and hopefully the coaches and players today can learn and adapt to their games. And no, thank you very much for doing this, Lisa.
Absolutely, I'm happy to do it. Okay, so let's jump in then. So when we talk about visualization, a lot of people think that it's seeing yourself being successful. And so it's creating these images in your mind. And that's absolutely what it is. And that's part of what we'll be talking about tonight. But we want to look at how we can make it feel like a richer experience. And so it's more than just seeing, it's more than just a visual perspective. We want to try to incorporate as many senses as possible. And we'll talk about this as we go through the session. But if you're doing a visualization, can you kind of imagine, maybe it's a warm day, feel the sun on you, or maybe it's windy and you're feeling that. Can you feel the weight of your club in your hand? Can you feel yourself kind of adjusting your posture, adjusting your positioning? Is there anything you can smell or hear? And so the more we can incorporate those senses, the more it just helps to add to the richness of that visualization, and it helps to make it seem even more real. And when it seems real to us and seems real to our brain, that really enhances our learning. And we often think that visualization is about seeing us being successful. And so seeing us performing the way that we want to, seeing us making some really great shots. And that's what we want to do. But we also want to look at, are there different ways that we can incorporate visualization? And maybe it's a way to prepare yourself. Maybe it's a way to regroup after a bad hole or a bad round. So being able to use it in different ways, depending on what's going to be helpful for you. And obviously we're going to get into this in more detail, but just wanted to start off with some of those key points. That being said, sometimes, like I said, athletes just feel like they struggle with visualization. They think, you know what, I'm not a visual person. It's not my strong suit. It's something that I just can't quite get. And so what I wanted to do to start us off tonight is I'm going to show you two different pictures. So I'm going to show you them one at a time. I'm going to show you the first picture for about 20 seconds. Then I'm going to take it away, and I'm going to ask you a series of questions about that picture. So obviously part of it's detail, attention to detail, being able to recall those details. But typically what happens is when you're recalling those details, you're actually kind of visualizing the picture as well. So I'm going to get started. I'm going to flip the slide, count in my head to 20, and then I'm going to take the picture away. And so I'll just give you a minute to take a look at it. Oh, sorry, we've got someone in the waiting room. I'm going to admit them and just go over that again. So for those that just joined, what we're doing is I'm going to show you a picture. I'm going to give you 20 seconds to look at it, and then I'm going to take the picture away and basically ask you some questions about it. So here we go. Okay, I think that was about 20 seconds. So let's go through the questions. You can unmute yourself or you can put your answers in the chat. I'm going to pull up my chat so I've got quick access to it. First question, what month was on the calendar?
January.
Yes, it is January. Perfect. What day of the week did the month start on? What day of the week? Yeah, we've got it in the chat here. It is Saturday. Awesome. What day of the week did the month end on? What was the last day of the week, or last day of the month, sorry?
Monday?
Not Monday, no. Not Thursday. We're getting closer with Thursday. Not Friday, go the other way.
Wednesday.
It's Wednesday, yes. Okay, how many lockers are there? Yeah, we've got a few people putting in the chat. There are 2. Okay, there's a stack of cups. How many cups are in the stack? Yeah, there are 4. That was a quick one in the chat there. Awesome. And there's a door. What side of the door is the handle on, the left or the right?
Right.
It is the right, yes. Awesome. And so, like I said, this is partly attention to detail. This is partly being able to recall. But I'm guessing what a lot of you were doing is, as I'm asking you these questions, you're trying to recall that in your mind, and you're thinking through, okay, what day of the week did it start on? The cups, where were they? How many were there? And so you're able to kind of recreate that in your mind. And so I'm going to show you it again, just to show you that I'm not kind of fooling or kind of playing around with these answers. So we've got the month, January. Obviously, if we start on a Sunday and on a Saturday, you can see the Saturday. You have to count over at the bottom, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. We can see the 2 lockers, the 4 cups in the stack, the door at the handle. So those are some of the things that I was asking about. We're going to do this again. And the purpose is so you get a second chance, but also now that you have an idea of some of the questions that I'm asking and some of the process that we're going through, sometimes the second time seems a bit easier. So again, I'm going to show you the picture, count to about 20 in my head, and then I'm going to take it away. So here we go. Okay. So again, about 20 seconds, give or take, obviously, depending on my counting. What time is it?
11:53.
Yes, it is. 11:53, 11:52, 11:54, something like that. But yeah, right in there. What kind of drink is there? Yeah.
Tea.
Yeah, awesome. We've got a few people in the chat. Someone's saying tea, it is tea. If you wanted to get really specific, you could say green tea. It's kind of green in color. We might assume that's the flavor of it. We don't know for sure, obviously, but it is tea. So there's a bulletin board with paper. There's a green paper. How many tacks are in the green paper?
4.
Not 4.
Oh, it's 2.
It is 2. Yep. We've got a couple people saying 2. What's on top of the pile of books?
A stapler.
Yes, it is a stapler. Awesome. And what is the color of the pencil?
Red.
Yes, it is red. Okay, so I'm going to show you the picture again so you can see that this is what you can see the time, like in that 11:53 range. You can see the T over on the corner of the desk. You can see the green paper. You can see the stapler. You can see the red pencil. As an aside, this book, Mindset, is an actual book. It's by Carol Dweck, D-W-E-C-K, and it's all about thinking patterns in terms of growth thinking patterns. And it's really, I think, a good book. So if it's something that you're interested in reading, I would encourage that one. we've got someone that's read it. So awesome. Yeah, I think it's a great one that anyone can kind of pick up and really start to build off of. Okay, so we've done a little bit of an activity to start with, but I want to get back into our content, back into more specific stuff to visualization. But again, just to emphasize, this is a really good activity. And obviously I just took a couple random pictures, but you can do this in a lot of different ways. You can pick up something that's close to you, like I've got my water bottle right here. You can pick it up, you can hold it, you can feel the temperature and the weight, you can look at the color, you can kind of see some of the details, and then you put it back down, you close your eyes, and try to imagine yourself holding it again. You can look at a picture on your phone, take in that, close your eyes, try to recreate the picture. So again, it can be really simple starting points, some of those things where you're just paying attention to what's around you, what's in your day-to-day. If you can start there. We'll obviously work into some other ways that you can look at starting with visualization, but this is one example. So we often think about visualization wanting to see ourselves being successful, but we can actually use it for a number of different purposes. We can use it in a number of different ways to help with our performance and really make sure that we're feeling ready. And so this first one, feeling calm and relaxed, one way that we can look at using our visualization is to imagine ourselves just feeling really calm, really relaxed, really controlled. And so thinking about how your body feels when you're in that way, maybe how your swing feels when you're feeling that way. You might imagine yourself in a comfortable or familiar setting, whether it's on the golf course or somewhere else. So those can be some different things that you could be doing to imagine yourself just maybe calming down a little bit, reducing your energy, getting into maybe a good state for yourself. You can obviously use it to practice performing your sports skills. So to maybe visualize some swings in your head, or I visualize putting, or visualize some of the different greens that you know. So be able to actually practice those sport performance skills by seeing yourself doing it in your mind. Like I said earlier, we want to sometimes kind of emphasize this focus on success, but we can actually use visualization to correct our mistakes as well. So say you miss a shot and you want to be able to correct that, you might then actually think about what happened and then correct your technique. You might visualize the ball going in or the shot being corrected that way. And so you can take something that's maybe not great and see yourself making those corrections. Sometimes we go into a setting where we're unfamiliar. So maybe it's a new course, or maybe you're golfing with new people, or maybe there's just something that's maybe feeling a bit off for you. And so if you know maybe you're going into a big tournament somewhere that you've never played before, you might actually visualize yourself being there. And by going through that in your mind, by thinking about it, by maybe looking at pictures of it and recreating those in your mind, you're making your brain more familiar with it, so that when you actually get there, you're going to feel more comfortable, even though you haven't actually been there. You can do that with situations that occur infrequently. So maybe there's a tournament that you don't often go to, or maybe there's a really close game that you're maybe not often in. You can imagine yourself in those situations. And again, by actually practicing it, you get that mental rehearsal, so that even though it doesn't happen kind of in person in real life that often, you have the mental practice that makes it feel more comfortable and more familiar. We're going to talk a little bit about controlling emotions later in the session as well, but we can also use our visualization to just tune into how our body's feeling, tune into the thoughts that we're having, tune into the emotions that we're experiencing, and then just practice responding the way that we want to respond. So maybe it's being able to calm down those negative thoughts. Maybe it's being able to take a deep breath to control some of that frustration that you're feeling. But being able to respond in those positive ways then tunes you to actually be able to do that when you're on the course. And so I had asked Steve ahead of time to maybe share some of his thoughts in terms of what he visualizes. And so we've got a lot of different examples here, but Steve, I'm just curious how you actually use visualization for yourself.
It's funny, you know, I use it all the time, and even when I'm not golfing, say for example, when I'm driving, say downtown and have a little bit of time, and I try and visualize, say, hitting a tee ball down Main Street or something, and seeing the ball flight of it, and visualizing it and going, and just little things like that throughout the day. I work on it when I'm not even thinking about it, so it's really good. And we have a few other guests here as well, and one of them, I don't know if you noticed, Danny Klugert's on the line. Curious to ask Danny what he thinks of when he's golfing or even just in public.
Yeah, awesome. Thanks for starting that off, Steve. Danny, you're welcome to share too.
Yeah, sorry, I'm just having supper here, guys.
That's okay.
Yeah, no, I definitely use visualization a lot. I mean, while I'm golfing, ever since they came out with those ball trackers and stuff that they show on TV, it's become a little easier to visualize a shot shape and stuff. Kind of just paint that line in my mind, and started at the target and then curve it to where I'm trying to get it to finish, and just paint that line from point A to point B, and seems to help. Yeah, and then I guess like leading up to events, like you said before, you can do it before you actually get to the golf course or get to the tournament. So that's something that I do when I'm prepping for a tournament. I'll start visualizing certain holes that I know at the golf courses and stuff like that, and start hitting those shots and shaping it the way that I know I'll have to when I play the course.
Yeah, perfect.
Yeah.
Thanks for sharing. That's awesome. Perfect. Steve, was there anyone else you wanted to share?
We could probably. I'm sure you have a few more questions.
Yeah.
I see Rick Hallberg. He's our senior champion from last year. Rick, what do you do when you visualize? Let's hear your thoughts.
I do similar things to what Danny's talking about. I know putting. When a guy gets on a roll with a putter, and almost when you're looking down and lining your putt up, standing behind the ball and taking a good look at it, I can almost see the line on the green where the ball's going to follow. Like say it has a 2-foot break left to right, can actually just about see that line right in the green where it's going to track right to the hole.
What if you don't know the course, Rick? Like, say if you've never played it, you go to Nova Scotia for nationals. What happens there?
Same thing. Usually try to play a few practice rounds. Then the practice rounds, I'm taking a lot of notes on how much break greens have. Look at where I think the holes are going to be. Hit a few practice putts of those. Mark it down in my little notebook that I've got. And then when it comes time, it's go time. You're reading that putt, and you can pretty well see the line it's got to take all the way to the hole. And all you have to do is hit a straight putt on the target you're starting it out at. Let the slope of the green take over and roll it right in. Wedge shots, similar. When the guy's hitting those little wedge shots, thinking about where I want to land it, what kind of spin I want on it, how far I think it's going to roll out with that spin. Iron shots going to the green, same as Danny. Whether you're playing a little cut or a draw, visualize where you want to start it, picking your target, and just seeing in your mind how high, like the trajectory you're trying to hit it, the amount of curve, all that kind of stuff is, I don't know, it's important to me.
Awesome. No, that sounds great. Yeah, and thanks to everyone for sharing those. I think it's really helpful. We don't always talk about our mental skills. I talk about it, but a lot of times athletes don't talk about what they're doing. And so I appreciate everyone being able to share some of those things and being able to think about what you visualize and what you incorporate. I think the other thing that's really helpful is to look at, are there things that you struggle with? And so again, Steve, I'll just start with you here. Do you struggle with visualization sometimes, and how do you manage that?
Yeah, definitely. All of us golfers here have a pre-shot routine, and sometimes I'll get up to the ball and your brain fires so fast that you get out of your pre-shot routine. So that was difficult to trust, stay with it and stay with the process. And so for me, I would just step away. You got to learn to step away. Don't just pull the trigger, step back, go through your routine and visualize. I do the same thing as Danny. I see I see the tracer, whether it's going to be a left to right or right to left shot, and I can just see it and then click it in and then go. Yeah.
Sorry, I'm done eating my vegetables now, but I think just having something like that visualization or seeing that line where you want the ball to start and where you want it to finish, that really takes your mind away. I used to my mind would wander before I hit the ball, and I would think, okay, I can't hit it in the sand, I can't hit it in the water. But if I just focus on hitting it at that target and just narrow my focus in on one thing, seemed to really help.
Yeah, awesome. That's such a good point too, like to direct your focus on what you want to happen and be able to take away all the things that you don't want to happen. I think that's a really good tip there with the visualization.
I think when it comes to putting too, I think back of all the putts I've made, like important putts I've made in the past. And when I really need to make a putt, I draw on that a lot and get to the point where you expect to make them. I don't know if that sounds right or not, but
That's just you, Rick.
or you just expect it's going to go in.
That's just you.
And if you expect it's going to go in, and don't be afraid to hit it, like that'll come up short too often on putts. Putt pretty aggressive, but you can't be afraid to make them. I guess what I'm trying to say.
That's a great point, Rick.
That's just you when Michelob Ultras are on the line.
Well, when you have something online, it makes it.
No, I think that's awesome. And again, I do appreciate sharing because we've talked about, sometimes visualization, it doesn't go maybe how you want it to. And obviously the games don't always go how you want it to, but it sounds like everyone has some of these things that they're doing to adjust or to really hone in their focus. And I think we can obviously learn from each other, but for those that maybe weren't talking, think, is that something I can try? Is that something that I have done or could do? But also recognizing that we need to figure out what's going to work best for us. And so I think that's really great. So we're going to just move ahead in terms of the presentation. But when we look at actually the benefits of visualization, we know, we're told to do it, our coaches tell us, it's something that is, I think, emphasized a lot. But really what happens is we have improved performance with visualization. And I'm going to give you an example of a classic study. So basketball athletes were taken, they kind of had a study, shooting test to see how many shots they could make. And they were divided into 3 different groups. The first group was practicing an hour a day for 6 weeks. The second group was practicing half an hour a day and doing half an hour visualization, so an hour total for 6 weeks. And then the third group was doing an hour visualization for the 6 weeks. And at the end, they looked at their shooting again. And they found that the group that had done half of the shooting and half of the visualization was the one that improved the most. And so we know that physical performance is important. We know that the physical practice is important, but especially when we're maybe away from golf courses or we're in the middle of winter, or there are other things that are maybe restricting us actually getting out and playing. Visualization is one thing that you can be doing fairly easily to actually help yourself to get better. And basically what it does is it's strengthening connections in your brain, which then helps to strengthen connections between your brain and your body. So there's a lot of science that we don't need to get into, but that's kind of the underlying point of simplifying how that improved performance happens. Especially when we're doing that visualization and we're thinking about ourselves in different situations, that helps us to be more consistent. So it helps us to be able to anticipate those situations, helps us to be able to think them through, helps us to be able to see ourselves being successful. And then that can help, again, to have that increased level of performance. When we do our visualization, especially if you're maybe trying to fix something or figure something out, you're maybe actually thinking through your visualization in more steps or more kind of cognitive process than you would when you're actually out playing. But what that does is it helps your brain kind of put those pieces in place so that when you do go out and actually physically play, it helps that process to be automated. So you don't have to think about it anymore. You can just go out and perform. When we're seeing ourselves being successful in our mind, that increases our self-confidence. And Rick kind of talked about that, just expecting himself to make it. And so whether it's thinking back to those past shots that you've made, or whether it's because you've seen yourself making the shot before you actually do, that increased confidence is always going to be a really key thing. Danny kind of talked about the attentional control. So instead of looking at, okay, I don't want to hit it here, I don't want to hit it here, I'm going to focus in on my target, focus in on what I want to do. That focus is such a key point. And so especially if you feel like your mind's wandering, ahead of your shot, visualization can be a really good way to bring it back to what you're doing and what you want to be doing. We can also use visualization as a way to decrease anxiety, decrease nerves. Again, because we're going through that kind of pre-performance routine, whether it's before a game or before a shot, that can help you to just feel kind of more comfortable, more confident, and then ready to go. So again, lots of different benefits. And I think it's important to think about this because if we know that it's going to help us, we're going to be more likely to do it then. So I'm going to lead you through a short visualization in a minute, but just want to kind of cue you into a few different things. So first one, as I'm going to talk you through this visualization, obviously see yourself doing it. So see yourself making the shot, see where the ball's going, all those different pieces that we've talked about already. Actually see that unfolding for yourself. Also, see if you can incorporate that feeling aspect. So feeling what your body's doing, feeling your posture, feeling your movement, feeling some of those different senses. So if there are sounds, if there are maybe things that you can taste or smell, or how your muscles are actually moving, those are all kind of feeling pieces that you can put in. And try to enjoy the process. Sometimes we think, okay, well, I don't like visualization, I'd rather not do this. If you can just even take a couple deep breaths, get yourself into a comfortable position, that's going to make you feel more comfortable right now. It's not maybe going to make you love the visualization immediately, but it's going to help you to ease into that and enjoy it a little bit more. So those are kind of your primers. This next slide is going to be kind of your cue. And like I said, I'm going to give you some prompts, but ultimately I want you to think back to some of your best performances. And so this could be a whole round of golf if you want. It could be one shot. It could be a couple different holes. You can think about what's going to be best for you, but being able to think about those times when you've really had those good performances. And so hopefully you're able to think about one. If not, maybe you're just kind of thinking back to one of the last rounds that you played, or maybe some of the shots that you've taken recently. But what I want you to do again is just to get yourself into that comfortable position. If you want to close your eyes, you can. If you'd rather keep them open, you can. But basically what I want you to do is think back to that past performance where you performed really well. And I want you to recreate that situation in your mind. And so I want you to see in as much detail as you can what was going on for you. And so you can see yourself being successful, see yourself succeeding with this. I want you to notice if there are any sounds involved, any things that you can pick out. As you get ready to perform the movement, I want you to tune into your body and feel your body as you actually perform those movements. I want you to notice if you can kind of re-experience any of those emotions or any of those thoughts that were coming up for you. And again, just go back to recreating, trying to make this as rich and full as you can. Think about what you're doing, what's happening, just seeing everything with a lot of clarity. Okay, and when you're ready, you can just start wrapping that up. It's obviously just a bit of some cues, and I'm not specifically guiding you through it, but this is one example where just even sometimes being primed to include those different pieces. Maybe you don't always include them, maybe you haven't thought about including them, but they just help to create that really kind of rich and vivid experience. And so the different senses, maybe the emotional component, maybe you're paying attention to who's around you, maybe you're just focusing on yourself. But there's a couple different things that you can do with this. I use best performances in a lot of different situations for a lot of different mental skills, but if you actually kind of write this out for yourself, and we're not going to do it right now, but just kind of jot this down as something that you can do, is write this out as a script in terms of what was going on, what you were feeling, what you were seeing. And then what you can do is actually kind of read through that as a way to guide your own visualization. You can read through it and then close your eyes and think about it. You can, sometimes people like to actually kind of voice record themselves and then listen back and be able to visualize as you're hearing yourself read it to you. There's lots of different ways that you can start to incorporate these, but if we're able to use our best performances, we know what happened because we've already lived through it, but our brain is still recreating that image in our mind, which is visualization. And so if you're someone that maybe struggles with visualization, thinking about it as a memory or kind of recreating, sometimes that can also seem like a easy starting point. So this is a really good way to practice visualization day to day, something that you can be thinking about. And again, you're seeing yourself doing something that you know you've already lived, and that can kind of rebuild those positive emotions, those thoughts, build up that confidence again too. So I mentioned that we're going to do a halftime break. Steve, we're 2 minutes over, but we're going to get to it right away. I want to pause though, just to see if there are any questions about some of the things I've talked about so far with visualization. Okay, so I'm happy to answer questions at any point, but what I'm going to do is let Steve take over for this halftime break.
Sure. All right. Are you able to move the slides for me, or?
Yeah, just let me know when you want me to advance.
Sure, sounds good. All right, little rules breakout. So we've got one of our main sponsors, Adidas, is provided us with some golf balls. So sleeve of balls goes to each winner. This will be open to anybody. So use an option to type in the answers. There'll be 3 questions. See, Jeff's got a few in his room. We'll give each of them a sleeve if they get it. So let's go to question number 1.
Sounds good. Here we go.
Okay. I see 2, 3, or 4 minutes. What's the answer? Go ahead and switch to the next slide.
Okay.
I see John Kales. That would be Carter Timmerman. He got the right answer. It's 3 minutes. So in 2019, it was 5 minutes. They've moved it down to 3 minutes. This is a huge thing for pace of play. Some Ariel, Alex Winterton there chirping a bit. Too bad. Let's say, okay, here's another one, bonus one. When does the search time start? When does the search time start for that ball? When the player arrives, that's correct. So who keeps score? You know, obviously you don't have rules officials around for time wise. So we kind of ask players to check your clock, check your watch, check your phone when you get to that area to start. So good answer there, Jeff. 3 minutes. And yeah, so we start when you get to that area of search where you think the ball is. So let's move to question number 2. When is the ball considered out of bounds? Type away. We got some fast typers, some slow typers. I'm terrible at it. Outside white stakes. I saw somebody jumped in before. Crossing the white stakes. When all of the ball is out of the white stakes. Anybody else? Okay, go ahead to the next slide. That is correct. So the diagram on the left shows out of bounds. There's a ball there. It's halfway in, halfway out. That ball is in. It's like a football, you know, that end zone. If that ball's on that line, it's in the end zone. Unfortunately, you're out of bounds. Okay, that whole ball's got to be on that line. See the one ball, he's halfway on the line. He's still in play. Can you get free relief from that out of bounds stake? Say if it's a fence, do you get free relief from that fence, out of bounds fence? No, 100%. Got to play it. You can do it unplayable if you like. Okay, great answers there. Good job. Okay, let's move to number 3. Here's a good one. We saw this at Torrey Pines a couple weekends ago. Can you take relief from an embedded ball in the general area? Got a quick one. No. Jeff says yes. Forsberg says yes. I also say yes. Now, the answer is true. You can take relief. Go ahead to the next slide, Lisa. So you do get relief in the general area. So this is anywhere on the golf course other than the hazards, the bunkers. Just pick it up. So yeah, so with Patrick Reed there a couple weeks ago, he did not break the rules, but he did it in a way that it was a little shady, where he marked his ball and moved it and then asked for a rules official. So there is lots of question there as to what, did he do it correctly or not. So you are allowed to take relief. Okay, great answers. Who is the actual winner of that last one? Let me slide back.
Does it have to
Okay.
embed on the fly? Or say second bounce it embeds?
It can bounce it. You have to have proof. I guess the referee in that situation, he felt the lip where the ball was. Do we know if Patrick Reed pushed that ball down as he marked his tee and put it there? We don't know, but it's a pretty shady one with a player that has some issues with the rules. So great job. Hopefully everybody enjoyed those. We're going to do these. Yeah, definitely has to break the surface, like Jeff says. You got to be able to tell. And usually when courses get lots of rain, these rulings come in more often than not. And yeah, definitely. Here's another one. Can you take a relief from a ball in the bunker? Bedded ball in the bunker. Definitely not.
Oh, I wish.
Play it as it lies, unfortunately. Last year we had a little bit of issue with the bunkers. There weren't allowed rakes in there, so we, if your ball was in a disturbed area, you were allowed to take relief there. You didn't have to drop the ball; you were able to place it. So, okay, yeah, definitely. Bunkers can be tough. So, Lisa, thank you. Let's move on to the next part of the section here, and we'll get some prizes of
Absolutely.
the winners.
That's perfect. Yeah, thank you for doing that. And there was a question that came in, so I'm just scrolling up. So the question is, if you could answer, what would be the primary purpose of visualization? And so I would say the primary purpose of visualization is just being able to basically get that mental practice where you're able to do your skills, you're able to golf in your mind. And so that then helps you to be able to obviously create those images, but that's then going to be able to increase confidence, increase performance as you indicated, but it also helps to increase your skill. And so, yeah, just actually being able to go through that process of having those images in your mind is something that then goes through so many different kind of brain muscle pathways. And so that can have, yeah, a ton of different benefits. So creating those images in your mind as a way to get practice, get mental practice, and then yes, as a result, increase confidence and performance. So really good question. Thanks for asking that. So before we took our break, we were going through that visualization, thinking back to best performances. But what I want to come back to is just, it's a model of some of the different things that you can be incorporating into your visualization. And so I'm not saying you have to do all of these, this is a lot, but these are questions that we often get in terms of maybe how to visualize properly. And so I'm gonna say there's no right or wrong way, but there are things that you can be doing to maybe make yourself feel like it's going more smoothly. So people ask about perspective. And so should I be seeing myself doing the visualization as if I'm in my body or as if I'm watching myself maybe on TV or video? Typically, we have a natural preference or a natural way that we do it. And because obviously when you're out golfing, you're in your body, you're visualizing and seeing things around you. That's, I think, typically the way that people lean. But external perspective can be really helpful as well. And you can see if kind of a few down, skills that rely heavily on form, if you're trying to make corrections to technique, if you're trying to really correct some different aspects of your game, having that external perspective can be helpful because you're seeing yourself, you're able to kind of see what that looks like and then make those corrections. Some people like doing it that way. Some people want to be able to actually tune into how their body feels when they're doing that. And so they like the internal perspective. So again, just recognize that you can do it a couple different ways, play around with both. Ultimately, it's coming back to what feels most natural for you. When you're creating these images in your mind, you want to try to make them as vivid, as real as you can. So as close as you can to the actual environment. And so this is where we talked about earlier, if you're going into some of those unfamiliar settings, you might actually look up videos, you might actually look up pictures of what that's going to look like for you so that you can incorporate those details into your visualization. That can be really helpful to make you feel like you're already there and living it. I've talked a little bit about task already, so just being able to, especially when you're looking at form, using those external imagery perspectives. But like I said already, those internal ones can help just with the muscle movement too. Sometimes people wonder how long should visualization take? And so what we want to do is we want to actually visualize that image or kind of recreate that image with the same amount of time as it's going to be if you're actually physically out doing that. And so that being said, I know a round of golf is several hours long. You don't need to visualize a whole round of golf, but it's being able to break down to kind of those key points and visualize those. So I think that's really important. The other piece with the timing is how often should I be doing this? And as Steve was saying earlier, you can incorporate this within your day-to-day. So you can incorporate it when you're brushing your teeth or before you're getting ready for bed or maybe as you're on your way to training. There's so many different ways to incorporate it into your day-to-day routine. So it just becomes normal for you to be thinking about these things and going over them in your mind. You can obviously also do it as part of your training to think about what you can incorporate and then how you can be doing it as part of your actual competition too. So what we're going to see in terms of learning is that if we took a very new novice golfer, their visualization process is going to be very different than an expert elite pro golfer. And so that's very normal because their brains know the game differently. They have different physical skill levels. And so that's one thing to keep in mind, especially as you're physically progressing and getting better with golf, is that your visualization is probably going to change slightly too, just because of what you know and how your skills are changing. So that's okay. It's sometimes just being aware of that happening. In terms of the emotional part of visualization, I prompted at emotions when we were going through that best performance, but our visualizations are going to feel even more real, even more vivid if we have some emotion with them. And so the example here is if you win a gold medal, imagining what that feels like. So imagining the excitement and imagining the joy. Maybe as part of your pre-shot, you want to feel that calm, you want to feel relaxed. Incorporate that feeling into your visualization. That can be something that's really helpful because then that cues you to set yourself up to actually feel that way when you're out on the course. And then in terms of kind of building off of that a little bit more, you need to decide what's going to be best for you in terms of energy level. So that physical nature, if you want to be really relaxed out there, you would probably want to, just like I prompted you earlier, take some slow, deep breaths, sit in a relaxed position, close your eyes. That's maybe going to help to facilitate those when you're visualizing. If you need to be a little bit more excited or a little bit more pumped up, maybe you're getting up and doing 5 jumping jacks as an example, or taking some kind of shorter, quicker breaths as a way to kind of increase and trigger your body to activate a little bit. So you need to decide what's going to work best for you, but being able to incorporate that prior to your visualization can then really help to prime your body as well. So again, I know there's lots of different things here, but these are often what we get questions about in terms of how should I format my visualization or what should I be doing? So just wanted to pause and see if there are any questions about some of these things before I move on and start getting into our next visualization activity. Okay. So what I want to do is just actually start to build out on that emotional part of it. And a lot of times when we think about sports, we know that there can be kind of extreme emotions that are involved where we see the ups and downs and we see sometimes that playing out in terms of how we're expressing it or how we're actually acting. And then sometimes we go to the other extreme where we think there should be no emotion. I shouldn't be kind of tied into what's going on. Ultimately, what we want to do, and this is going to be for everyone to decide what's best for them, is come to this kind of happy medium where emotions are part of it because they're part of every lived experience that we have, but we don't feel like we're being controlled by them. We know that they're there, but we're still able to go out and perform based on what we know is best for us. And so with this, especially if you're able to start incorporating some of those emotions into your performance, into your visualization, it just helps to start building out those pieces a little bit. So this next visualization that I'm going to have you do, and you'll see that it says emotions in your best performance. We kind of already did that. So I'm going to change it a little bit actually. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to lead you through a visualization where you go from kind of playing well to maybe missing a shot or missing, kind of not doing well on a hole. And again, we're thinking like, why would I want to do that? But often there's some kind of emotional response where we feel down on ourselves, or we're doubting or second guessing or frustrated. And what you're going to do in this visualization is you're actually going to imagine what you would do to work through that, how you would calm yourself down, how you would kind of process that emotionally, cognitively, physically, to then get back and have some really good shots or a really good next hole. So again, there's a purpose for this. It's not just to see ourselves failing and kind of decrease our confidence that way. It's to know we've got the skills to actually work through it. So what I'm going to have you do is, again, just get yourself into that situation that's going to make you feel comfortable for visualizing. If you want to take some slow, deep breaths, that's great. If you want to maybe change your breathing so it's a bit quicker to activate yourself, you can do that too. I just want you to imagine that you're out having a good day of golf. So again, you've been having some good shots, you've been having some good holes, things overall are going pretty well for you. And again, you want to try to incorporate your different senses. So see those shots going well, maybe hear the sounds that are going on around you, feel what your body's doing, use all those different pieces to just start to create this experience for yourself. And now what I want you to do is to imagine that you miss a couple shots, and to just kind of see that happening for yourself and feel how you're responding when you're missing those shots. See what you're noticing in your body. See if you notice what's going on around you. So creating that for yourself. And what I want you to do now in this moment is actually bring your attention back to your body and just focus on relaxing your body. You can relax your muscles if you want. You can take a deep breath, inhale and slowly exhale. I want you to imagine that you've got that tension leaving your body. And I want you to just focus on your breathing in this moment, inhaling, exhaling until you feel that you've relaxed from the visualization of missing those shots. And I want you to imagine yourself back in that moment and think about what you would want to do to regroup and how you would actually regroup to move on to that next shot or that next hole. And I want you to imagine yourself going up to your ball for that next shot and seeing it go exactly how you want. So seeing yourself regrouping and getting back to that really good performance for yourself. I want you to reinforce that shot by feeling proud and confident that you were able to control that situation, that you were able to control some of those negatives and get yourself back to the performance that you want. And again, you can just start wrapping that up whenever it's going to be kind of best or most natural for you. And so again, this can feel like a very different kind of visualization. We don't often think of this as something that we want to do. And just visualizing a missed shot on its own isn't going to be very helpful. The helpful piece is that you're actually starting to plan how you're going to regroup from that, because everyone here has had bad shots and had bad holes, and everyone here is going to continue having those to whatever degree that is for you. And so that's something that if we can almost plan for and then be able to think about, how am I going to work through this? How am I going to control my emotions? How am I going to get myself back on track? Then when you're in that situation, again, it's maybe doesn't happen that often. Maybe it happens a ton, but you think, okay, I know how to deal with this. You can calm down your body. You can focus on those thoughts. You can deal with your emotions as you've practiced through your visualization. And then you're able to know that you have that ability to get yourself back on track and have a good shot. So again, it can feel a little bit different, but it's another really good piece to have for practicing. Some other things that you can think about, and I'm not going to actually walk you through a visualization for these, but just other pieces that you can think through is first one, imagining the efforts that is associated with this. So the effort of maybe that you're expending at the start of a round versus at the end of the round versus at the end of maybe a tournament. And so being able to incorporate that, obviously to make sure that you're working hard, but also to make it seem more realistic in terms of what that feels like for your body and for your mind. Kind of tagging into the emotional thought, I talked a little bit about the thoughts, but thinking about what kinds of thoughts you might be having for yourself, recognizing that you don't have to believe those negative thoughts, that you can start to regroup and get yourself back on track. And so you can do that from that perspective where you're dealing with those negative thoughts. You can also visualize yourself with maybe a cue word that works really well for you. And so maybe it's like smooth, maybe that's an example of your cue word. And so you could actually put that cue word into the visualization that you're doing. And that might be something that then really helps you to practice that and ties it into how you're feeling when you're doing your visualization, and then obviously transfer onto the course. Again, I talked a little bit about energy too, but this is something where you can start to think, what kind of energy level do I want to have at the start of a game with some of these different shots towards the end of the game, and be able to think about actually trying to incorporate that as a piece into your visualization as well. So again, lots of different ways that you can play around with it. There's no right or wrong. These are obviously just examples. Sometimes people like watching videos of themselves. If you've got some of that footage, you can rewatch it, then visualize. Sometimes people obviously like to watch professionals golfing, but then you can maybe tie that back to yourself of maybe where you want to be down the road. And so ultimately, you're in control. You're the one that gets to create these images, and thinking about how you can play around with different scenarios that are going to help you to feel that you're prepared, confident, and setting yourself up to be successful. And so what I want to do, just as we're starting to wrap up for the night, is give you some examples of how you can actually incorporate your visualization into your training. And so this may be a little bit different, obviously, winter versus summer, but just think about what's going to be best for you based on where you're at right now and maybe what you would want to do down the road. And so one of the things that you can actually do is start visualizing yourself being successful during your warm-up, whether it's achieving your goals or just having some good shots. This is something that if you're doing this as you're getting ready or as you're kind of walking into the situation, it gets your mind onto that positive cycle. It helps to get your mind activated and focused, and that can then transfer into having a good session. I talked a little bit about making mistakes and being able to correct those. Again, if you kind of don't have a great shot or something goes a little bit wrong, visualize yourself correcting that after you've made that mistake. And that can be really helpful in terms of then being able to create that connection between your mind and your body. We've already talked about those past successful performances and just visualizing those, but what you can do in terms of a training session is if you have an awesome shot or something goes really well, stop, take 5 or 10 seconds and just recreate that in your mind immediately after. And so what that does is, because it's so close, you're able to remember it really well, but then because you're being so conscious about visualizing it in the moment, it helps to lay down that memory really clearly. And so when you're 5 days later, a month later, you're able to remember it more clearly than if you just kind of moved on and hadn't paid attention to it as you did in the moment. So that can be another example. If you have breaks, this can be something where you're actually able to visualize yourself if you're drinking some water, if you're able to kind of take that step back, being able to visualize how you might want to get back into it afterwards. So being able to use those breaks. And then being able to visualize yourself incorporating feedback. So not only listening to what someone is telling you, but actually seeing yourself doing what they're telling you to. And so that can be another really good way to start incorporating that learning on a number of different levels. So obviously, again, these are just some examples. The more you can start thinking about what might work best for you, that's going to help just to make it seem that's easier to apply because it's something that you like and something that you think is going to work. I'm going to move into our summary for tonight. So you can see that visualization is more than just images. We want to incorporate as many senses as we can. So the sounds, or taste or smells, what your body's feeling, the weight of your club, all those different things to make it seem as real as possible. You can add in the emotion if you want to make it seem more meaningful, to be able to generate that positive performance. You can add in, we talked about the effort, we talked about the thoughts, the energy. Those are all different things that you can kind of play around with just to make it feel more real and see what you like and see what works best for you. And then obviously we talked about being able to just visualize throughout your day, whether it's just at different times that you're able to fit it in for a couple minutes. That's awesome. It's all part of that practice, all part of that, that process that you're going through mentally. But you can also try to be more effective or more efficient in your training sessions too. You can have the mental aspect that's dialed in when you're physically out there. That's going to help to enhance both as well. So I'm going to just flip to questions. You can see my email address is there if you want to ask questions, maybe down the road something comes up and you want to follow up with me. But we've got a couple minutes if there are any questions either in the chat or unmute yourself. I'm happy to go over some things that maybe you're wondering about.
Hey Lisa, Jeff Chambers here.
Yeah, hey Jeff.
Thanks for tonight. I just thought I'd give you an example of probably one of our greatest Saskatchewan golfers ever, and his visualization is Graham Dillette. And Rickle Hallberg's on here, and he was on that team the year we were in Toronto, and I was there as the coach. And I noticed with Graham that he would get down for every putt and pretend to roll the ball. And I didn't know what he was doing. Like, it looked, nobody else did it. And I asked him, like, what are you doing? And he says, well, I have trouble visualizing, but I find if I pretend to roll the ball that way I can see the ball roll, and then I can get my line. And unfortunately, if he would have used that on the tour, I think he would have won more events, but he that's what he did in his amateur career, and it obviously worked great. So that's more on the visualization part.
Yeah, and actually, thanks for bringing that up. I think it's a great example. But it also ties in something that I hadn't mentioned, is that if we can use some of those physical cues, so for him kind of maybe actually physically kind of going through the motion of rolling it, maybe not actually doing it, but anytime we can kind of tie that body. So if you actually want to either hold your golf club in your hand or pretend you've got it and maybe physically go through either a full motion or a partial motion, again, that just helps to make it more real. So I think really good example of what Graham was doing, but also another piece that we can be incorporating in, just kind of those mini movements or those partial movements to make the muscle memory feel kind of more tied in with that. Any other questions or comments from things that have come up for tonight?
Lisa, I think players, you know, when we all have things we work on in our games and certain things we're working on, whether it's short game, putting, full swing. Visualization is a huge part of that. For me personally, I work on the top of my swing. I try and visualize the top, and even in rehearsal and in practice swings, and it really helps visualization and working on it as you develop as a player. And definitely a great topic, first topic.
Awesome. Yeah. And so like I said, this is our first of a few sessions, but this is one that we will come back to. So for example, if we're talking about pre-performance routines, visualization comes into play. We've talked about kind of thinking patterns and emotions. We're going to tie those into other sessions. So you're going to see a lot of these pieces really start to come together. So I'm happy to, yeah, I'm looking forward to being able to continue building on this. And the other thing is we're right at 8 o'clock, so I'm going to wrap up. I'm going to let you go. I appreciate everyone joining. But what I'm going to do too is I'm going to stay on. So if you do have questions that you want to ask me one-on-one, I'm happy to go over those as well. I'm going to stop the recording just so those aren't included in terms of what's being sent out. But thanks everyone for joining, and I hope you all have a great evening.